Check. 1, 2, 3.
The D.
Brief.
This is the D Brief.
Your guide to Detroit.
Your guide to Detroit's arts
and entertainment scene.
This is the D
Brief.
Hello and welcome to the very first The Debrief live stream edition. I am Seth Wrestler.
I'm Becky Scarcello.
And it's been a while since we've done this. I'm feeling a little rusty. How about you?
Me too. I'm like, okay, so I'm a little rusty on the mic. We're going to get back to podcasting. Oh, and yeah, let's do it video. Okay.
Yeah, I have always been a radio guy. There's a joke in the radio world, which is having a face for radio. I do not like being on television, but...
Oh, you're adorable, Seth. You look great, especially with your new do.
Yeah, thanks. This is the quarantine haircut we got going on here.
Yeah.
It's just pillowcase is getting a little sweaty at night. I couldn't deal with it anymore. So
TMI.
I'm just saying. So look, normally we host this podcast. It is about the Detroit arts and entertainment scene and everything that's going on in the Detroit arts and entertainment scene. We had to put it on pause because, of course, there was nothing going on in the Detroit arts and entertainment scene due to the pandemic. By the way, how's your apocalypse going?
You know what? I could complain, but I will not. I'm feeling very fortunate, but I would say I just try to remind myself every day how have gratitude and focus on the positive. But I tell you, it is a roller coaster. So definitely depends what time of day you get me, what I might say. It's a rather loaded question.
Yeah.
But, you and I have talked about it, and it's, I miss things. I miss things. I miss people. I miss hugging. I miss going out and just, feeling the energy of other people. That's what I miss the most.
I had this weird moment last night as we're sitting in the backyard, with the fire pit going, where I was thinking about Las Vegas. And for the last 5 years for work, I have wound up in Las Vegas at least once a year. And I'm not a big Las Vegas fan. Like I was when I was in my 20s, and the strip seemed really, really cool because I'd just seen swingers and all that. Yeah. Now that I'm older, Las Vegas seems sillier and sillier every single time I go out. And so I often want to get away and I go to downtown Las Vegas, like the old downtown.
Yeah, Fremont Street and all that.
Yep. And if you go on the other side of Fremont Street, they've built up a lot of areas, like Container Park is one of my favorite places. Exactly. And they have this statue of a metal grasshopper that breathes fire over there in Vegas. And then they've built out of all these shipping containers, all these little places where you can eat or you can, do shopping or all kinds of stuff. And so I love to just go over there to get away from the strip when I'm in Vegas. And it just kind of hit me last night. It's not even like that's a big deal. Like it's, oh my gosh, I look forward to that every year. It's just one of those little things where I'm like, I don't know when that's going to happen again.
No, I'm with you. And funny enough, my story would be about Las Vegas as well. Something that really hit me is because that's the last big music festival I went to. I love the music festivals. Movement just passed. And, of course, we didn't get to go. We didn't get to have that. But the last festival I went was the Intersect Festival in December in Las Vegas. And it was so great, and we had such a good time, and I'm so glad I got to do that. And I look back like, I don't know when we're going to feel that again. And I mean, in the scheme of things, we're alive, we're healthy, but it makes you really appreciate those experiences that you had.
Well, look, we wanted to bring the show back in some form. We decided to try a live stream because all the cool kids are doing it these days. We figured we might as well check in with one of our favorite people, Steve Johnson, who under normal circumstances runs beer tours. He runs Motor City Brew tours here in the city of Detroit. We'll find out what he's up to now, because I'm assuming that there aren't a whole lot of beer tours going on. And he's always a great person to check in and find out what's going on in the beer scene. I'm curious to find out how this pandemic is impacting them. And then, of course, after that, we will do shout outs, which is something that we always do on the podcast. One of the things that we want to try with this live stream is if you are watching this and you would like to give a shout out to somebody locally, especially in the arts and entertainment scene, who's doing something really cool, you can leave it in the comments right there on the Facebook post underneath this video, and we'll mention it at the end. So if you have a shout out, somebody you want to give, just leave a quick comment there. But without further ado, let's bring Steve Johnson of Motor City Brew Tours. Whoops. There he is. I'm still getting used to all the buttons.
Yeah.
Hi, Steve. How you doing? Oh,
There
he
he-
looks frozen.
There I am.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
he
and that's
is.
a horrible face to be frozen.
We all have some of
Steve.
those.
How you doing? You there?
I think we're having a technical problem here.
Mm.
Did I move that thing wrong?
You have
It
a
was right
lovely
before.
window. That's
Yes,
really good.
that right ear of yours is looking great these days.
Good feature.
This is why normal people have television producers. So
Oh, yes.
I look like this. I'm not getting through.
it's
I apologize. It looks like this is cutting off.
Little halting.
yeah. Can you hear us there, Steve? Steve, are you with
Barely.
us? So
He's giving us a thumbs down.
no such luck, huh? And are you on Wi-Fi with your phone? You on cellular data? Try switching your phone to Wi-Fi if you can. That's a nod.
Yes.
Now he just looks frozen.
I know. Shoot, in our green room segment, he was fine.
He was wonderful in the green room.
Yes. Trust us. The sound check portion of this was going swimmingly.
Well, here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna kick him out. If he comes back, we'll have him back in. We'll talk
reconvene.
a little bit about the beer scene.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what you've been doing with your pandemic, though. Like, what have you been up to in the 2 months since I've seen you?
Yeah, has it been that long? Yeah, I don't know. I kind of became a TV watcher. On the show that we were always like, "Did you watch this? Did you?"
Oh, you
And I'd
are
always be
watching
like,
TV
"No,
now?
I don't really watch TV, but not a ton, but I have found some good shows. So I've done that a little bit. I mean, cooking a ton. So doing a lot of dishes. Projects around the house that
Do you cook normally?
I
Are you the cook in the house?
we share. Me and my husband share responsibility, and actually, my younger son will often help out, but I'm the primary cook. Yeah. But now it's more even, which is nice. And we've done some really cool meals. But yeah, just all those projects that were kind of like, I'll do that later when I have time. I've started to chip away at those. But honestly, half the time I don't know where the days go. I try to keep in touch with friends and family. And I found I've had some really great conversations with people that I feel like used to be like 10 minutes here, 20 minutes here. Like I can talk to people on the phone for hours now and like get like a proper good catch up.
Are you on the phone a lot? I am not. I have not been.
I wouldn't say a lot, but when I am with each person seems to be, a long time. Doing a lot of Zoom things, like my sister's birthday the other day, and she's in Pittsburgh, so we had a Zoom party.
Yep.
I think just trying to, I certainly haven't like learned a language or, here I am with all these instruments in my house. I have not learned an instrument. Nothing big and life changing, just kind of like taking care of the family and dealing with stuff, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that I have done quite a bit. Hold on, I'm leaving a note in the chat on the same time as we do this.
And I will say with job, the beginning of it was canceling a lot of tours and just kind of like refunding people and dealing with how the tour schedule was going to look. And that was pretty depressing, and the uncertainty of when we're going to be able to show people around Detroit again.
So talk about that a little bit, because you, of course, work for Feet on the Street Tours.
Feet on the
You
Street
normally
tours,
give tours over in Eastern Market.
all over the city.
And what has happened? I imagine all the tours are canceled. What does it look like? What does the tour business look like? When are you guys talking about? Are you talking about a time when this might come back? What might that look like?
Yeah, I think we just play it week by week, honestly, because, as the stay-at-home orders get extended or the group size. But, we're all about on our tours. There's not a lot of static tours where we just look at things from the outside. Like the signature of Feet on the Street tours is to be able to go into businesses that let us in early, that we can sample special food, that we can go behind the scenes places. So those businesses have not been able to be open. So not only are our tours not able to operate, but we aren't able to support and go into the venues that we would like to. So a lot of it's just been on hold. I've seen others in the industry doing some virtual tours that are really cool. I saw one of the Detroit Riverfront the other day. They did a great job just doing like Google Maps on a Zoom call. So there's different possibilities, but for us, we really want to we have very small staff, and we really want to keep our personal behind the scenes touch. And so we're just playing it week by week, seeing what the possibilities are. And we have mostly private tours with personal clients. So we've been able to talk with them and talk about rescheduling and stuff. But when you're dealing with a bus of 50 people, clearly we can't do that right now.
So, a lot of places kind of have this twofold thing going on where, first of all, the government has to let them open up again.
Right.
And then even if the government lets them open up again, there's the question of whether people are actually going to show up. If you're a restaurant, are people going to show up? You've actually got this third thing, which is you've got all these businesses, these little, shops that you take people to on the tours, and you need them to open up as well. So you've got an additional layer on top of everything else.
Right. But I envision like our murals tours coming back, soonest, because because I can take people outside in small groups in Eastern Market, and we really don't have to go in anywhere. And then I can talk about the artists all day long and the artwork. So I think those types of things will be the first to come back.
Very cool. All right. Well, look, it looks like Steve has rejoined us. We're going to try this again. We're going to see if this works. Once again, we're trying here. Steve Johnson.
There he is.
With 6 people at his house watching Netflix, which I assume is why we're having these issues of Motor City Brew Tours. Are you there? Can you hear us? How you doing?
I can hear you this time. Yeah. Sorry about all that.
Oh, it sounds great now. Very good.
Yeah. No worries. Well, look, we normally start our podcast with a trivia question. So, Steve, before we get into talking to you, Becky, let's start with the trivia question, shall we?
Okay, yeah. So I thought about, we just had Memorial Day yesterday, and just another thing to be full of gratitude is all the men and women that have, lost their lives in service to our country. So I was thinking about memorializing them and what there is in Detroit to sort of represent that. So the Soldiers and Sailors Monument, I thought I'd talk about. So you all know that huge monument that's in the traffic circle of Campus Martius Park. So I wanted to see how much you know about it. It's one of Detroit's oldest pieces of public art. I don't think
Steve's got that I know nothing about it.
He's like, I do tours, but we're drinking beer. Yeah. So that's actually a Civil War memorial. So it was dedicated in 1872. So, but the cool thing was in 2005, they had a rededication ceremony for that, and there's a time capsule inside that monument, which I think a lot of people don't realize. So they took it out and they updated it with every other, war and everything that our country's been involved with. They updated the list with all the Michigan soldiers that have died in service to our country. So I want to ask you, you've seen it, you've seen the structure, the octagonal. How would I say that? The octagons with
octagonal?
Octagonal.
In the shape of an octagon?
Yes, exactly. With the different figures on it. So do you know what's at the top of the statue? Okay, it's 60 foot tall. You've walked by that a million times. Do you know what's on top of it? I'll give you choices. If
there's
that
one
helps.
person, there's one thing at the top of it. Yes. I'll take choices. Steve's like, I don't. Steve, is that I'm having tech problems face, or is that I just don't know the answer to the trivia question face?
Yeah. Okay.
Because they're very similar looking faces.
So, what's on top of the Soldiers and Sailors Monument in Campus Martius Park? Is it an American flag? Is it a woman? Is it a star? Or is it crossed swords?
What is on top of the monument? Is it? Go through these choices one more time.
American flag, a woman, a star,
American flag,
a star,
a woman,
or cross swords.
Steve, you have any idea?
A star. I have no idea.
I think it's a woman.
Okay, give yourself the bell, Seth. Do you have the bell? I don't have a bell in my house here in my basement.
We in the panic of the pandemic, we parted ways, and the trivia bell somehow
I
came
probably
home
had
with
a
me.
bell up in my office, but now I've moved downstairs, so
Yeah.
no bells down.
I told him I have my little.
You got to
hoe
earn the
button.
bell.
I have my little hoe button, but it's very quiet. You might not be able to hear. So that was from the Mayor Hawthorne, the Tuxedo concert. But anyways, it is a woman. She represents a victorious Michigan, right? So a kind of a victory. She's got a winged helmet on. She's got a sword in one hand, a shield in her other hand, and kind of topping off the whole thing. So that's your trivia answer for the day.
Woo! All right. I want to remind everybody that one of the things that we're going to do at the end of the live stream, like we do at the end of every podcast episode, is we're going to give shout outs. So if there is anybody that you would like to give a shout out to, especially somebody in the local arts and entertainment scene, an organization that you just think is doing something very cool, please just leave it in the comments, and we will mention it when we do shout outs at the end of the show. Joining us, our special guest for our very first live stream, the first one we have done that is not a podcast episode, but in fact is a live stream on our Facebook page and on YouTube, is Steve Johnson. He is the founder of Motor City Brew Tours. He also hosts the podcast, the Beer Tour Guide podcast. Steve, welcome to the show.
All right, thanks for having me back.
I just called him the Beer King, and he seemed to like that, but I think it fits.
Yes.
I'll take that. That's cool.
Yeah.
So Becky and I were talking about it earlier. The tour business has been a lot of cancellations lately. Has that been the same for you? Like, what do you do these days?
Well, yeah, correct. Just like all other tour companies, everything's kind of on hold, and will be probably a pretty slow process of kind of getting back into tours down the road. We instantly closed down everything right when kind of lockdown occurred. So really from the first week of almost March forward, we haven't run anything, and we refunded everybody from here toward up to the end of July at this point, and we've kind of moved some things into August, but we don't totally know if we'll still do those or not. But that's common across the whole country. We're really no different in Detroit than we are anywhere else.
You guys are both tour guides. Do you have any thoughts on what it might look like when it does come back? I mean, are we talking about social distancing and people wearing masks on tours and limited groups? And are you having those discussions yet?
Yeah, I think it'd be all those things, accommodations, and just limiting the size is the big thing. And it will come down to who has the appetite for it. I mean, I know with Feet on the Street tours, we serve all ages, but we had to cancel right away some school groups because obviously school stopped being in session. But we also have a lot of seniors. I don't know if older people are going to feel comfortable, especially when you're going in and out of venues. So I think there'll be more virtual aspects. There'll be social distancing, smaller groups. And just it'll depend on what tour companies, what your break-even point is.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'd say the advantage of a lot of tour operators is they run pretty thin operations. I sure do. I don't have necessarily, right. In my case, I'm more of a single operator with friends and family that help me, and I charter out the buses, so I don't own a bus. If you owned a bus, you'd probably be a little different conversation. But in my case, I probably won't do many bus tours anymore, or for the short term. I might do some walking tours where you're outside and bicycle tours where you're outside, but definitely, as Becky said, in smaller groups, and do it to the level that people are comfortable with. Mm-hmm. It might be like a group of 10 books us because they all know each other and they're comfortable doing that.
Yes.
But I think we're all trying to figure it out. And I've been in discussions with other tour operators in Detroit. We all have those same concerns, all those same questions, and definitely a certain level of uncertainty that we've never really had before. So I think we all agree, though, that we want to get back there to doing tours.
Well, and
Yeah.
I think we fit in a interesting place in the economy is that we can be the conduit for supporting a lot of other businesses. So I'm just hyped to, as soon as I can, be able to not only support my business but also everybody else. You know, if a business is newly reopened and we can bring 10 people there, that's great. You know, it's a domino effect.
I would think that masks are particularly tricky when it comes to beer tours. I mean, I feel like straws are going to be some part of the answer there. I don't know what it looks like. So,
well, some of it'll be interesting. It'll be like people do beer samples on my tours, and typically we'd have pitchers of beer lined up, and they would go up and grab a pitcher with their hand and pour it in their glass. It'll be probably different in the way it gets handled. It'll be like someone with gloves will pour samples for everyone and hand it to them on a tray that they grab the sample from. And you'll have to kind of think through that process of how you would do that. Or if I serve pizza on a tour, it might be one person with gloves on hands people pizza on a plate, and that person, you know, throws away their plate when they're done in the garbage. And simple things like that, which a lot of these restaurants will already be looking at. Tour operators have to look at that part of it as well, more kind of single serve type of things for tours where that would fit.
Definitely.
You know, I'm in a Facebook group with a lot of live event organizers, and you've had a lot of discussion about types of businesses needing assistance in ways that they have not in the past. And I know, you know, with some of the packages, the relief packages that are out there, they've been made available to companies or individuals who would not have been eligible for them under different types of circumstances. Have you guys had experience with that, or have you been going through any of that with the tour businesses? Steve, we'll start with you.
Okay. So I thought
you want me to take it?
I'll raise my hand. I thought Becky was going to talk.
No,
Sorry.
go ahead.
No, that's all right. I can take it. I mean, in my case, I don't have regular payroll, so a lot of those programs were related to keeping on your staff and paying them. That doesn't really apply to a single operator. In my case, I'm actually getting unemployment and getting funding that way, and trying to keep everything else to a minimum. For a lot of my peers, that's pretty similar. We kind of fall in this in-between spot where when you're a single operator, tour operator, you may not pay yourself for 6 months typically. Right. So it's hard to look at it of what do you pay yourself each month? Well, I really don't. So this will just be a year where I don't get paid the whole year, but my expenses might not be as much as someone who owned a restaurant and had rent, right? I don't really have rent, just a little insurance costs, some liability insurance and things like that most operators would have. So a lot of the federal programs would not apply into that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I knew Steve and I's company, they're very similar. So same thing. You know, in terms of the businesses we deal with, I think it'll be interesting to see at what point, even if they're allowed to open, what point of capacity will allow them to make any kind of money to make it worth opening the doors. So I think that's going to be the next layer of things, you know, depending on how your restaurant is laid out. If you're told you can have 25% capacity, it may not be worth it. It may be more expensive to open the doors. And then also with the way unemployment's structured, your employees may prefer to stay on that and make a safe amount of money and a decent amount of money, until that runs out. It'll be hard to justify having people come back to work where they will make less money in, theoretically more dangerous conditions.
Yeah, especially if you got kids at home or
yes,
somebody in your family who might be vulnerable to getting sick.
Yeah.
So I imagine there's also a seasonality to your businesses that, we are now getting into what would be the busy season. What does that mean in terms of how this plays out? And, what happens if we go through and talk about that a little bit? What happens if we go through this whole season and are unable to reopen? And Steve, let's start with you.
The seasonality of the seasonality of mine, just like Becky's, is totally the same. Typically, like May through September is your sweet spot for the tour industry, and that's when most people travel. Definitely June, July, August, and people start making those decisions as they get into early spring, maybe sometimes even as you start the year. And we've already lost all that. So as things slowly open up, people will casually, want to go out and start doing things again. But you won't really get, if you get anything, it'll be a much smaller percentage. And by the time you get into fall, you've really lost that. Even though I run year round, most of my business is really May through September, like 85% of it. So it'll just be a year where you'll write that off and hope for things to be better as you get to this point next year and kind of plan for that. That's really all I've been doing at this point, is saying, okay, put kind of a pause on everything and hope when I roll into next year that things are, a bit more known and all.
Well,
that.
and I've seen you, Steve, and I'm trying to do the same thing. We're trying to support the businesses in other ways, sharing on social media, through your podcast. So maybe can you talk a little bit about that,
Sure.
about what the actual breweries and brewers have been doing during this time?
Sure. Yeah. I could say, like, in my case, like the first thing I did as lockdown started to happen was I created like a super list of every brewery that was offering carryout. And if you go to MotorCityBrewTours.com, I actually have a list of like every brewery, meadery, cidery in downtown and Metro Detroit, going out pretty far, of kind of links to get to their sites and things like that. And as those things got updated, I was sharing stuff like that on social and on a Facebook group that I have, which is Michigan Craft Beer Events. And that was one way to help get the message out of great things these breweries were doing. And then that has evolved over time as breweries have kind of figured it out. Some closed right away, didn't do anything for a while. Some now have reopened, some in the last couple of weeks. Others have adjusted their hours a lot to figure out kind of what worked best for the limited staff they had on. And it's really trying to help get the word out that that's occurring. And that is just as important as anything right now, because we really need to support all of these small businesses in this time. Whether you're going there to carry out food or beer, drink, whatever, or just sharing that they're actually doing that, even if you don't have money to do that, if you share it, all of those things are really helpful. And that's kind of where I felt I could at least do that.
Right. Same. Yeah. Yeah. And just, I think in some ways, some of those interactions have been so much more personal than they were before. Like now, like the Ferndale Project, they will deliver beer to your door and you can be like, hey, what's going on? And you have a whole conversation with from a safe distance, but like people get excited and then other people might be out on the street and say, oh, what's going on with that? It's like the ice cream truck, but it's beer. But I feel like everyone is so friendly. And when you go to a place and take the extra time to order something online and go get carry out and leave a tip if you can, to whatever extent you're financially able to, it's like this cool, like you meet eyes, like, oh, thanks. And then you feel good about it. And I think that's one positive, that if you can just share that so people sort of know where to go, it ends up being a really positive, cool experience and a good way to support local like never before.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that's always been the case. And I think the pandemic has really like brought that into focus for people a lot more, that maybe some people kind of forgot that or take it for granted at times, that they have these great local businesses that they should always be supporting. But now more than ever, everything you can do for them is a great thing. Right. Yeah. And beer, in my world, it's beer, but I'm also a member of a small, of the Chamber of Commerce in Berkeley, and I'm out there touting every Berkeley business going through this, or whatever community you live in. You should be doing the same thing, trying to help support those things, right? And that's what I've continued to do.
Yeah.
When you look at what the breweries have done, has has it basically been just everybody's doing carry out, or have you seen a variety of different responses?
I think it's mainly carry out. It's, some who have food have figured out the food part, or some that didn't do carry out before have learned to, order off their website, for example. I'd say that's probably been the biggest change I've seen. A whole slew of breweries now you can order directly off their website, as opposed to just showing up and asking for what you want, which was probably how you did it in the past, right? Now you're kind of planning it out. It's like they shared on Facebook, hey, we just canned these 3 new beers. Click on this link to go to our online store and pre-order it, and then you come and pick it up between these hours, right? Yeah. Or like Becky said with Ferndale Project and others that are doing some delivery, or you could get it delivered, right? Combinations of that. Those guys and girls are really, figuring that out. Others have done interesting things like added merchandise and gift cards into what they're doing. And that's another way you can support these businesses. Same with Motor City Brew Tours. I sell gift cards, and I've expanded out my expiration dates, for example, on gift cards for a year and a half, which normally we would not do that. So some of our gift cards might have been bought for Christmas and they were going to use them this whole year. I've expanded that by a whole other year beyond that. All these businesses are kind of doing that same thing because they want you to eventually come back when you feel safe to do that. Right. And I think the businesses that get that are sharing that, their customers are going to remember that.
Definitely.
We are talking a lot about the changes that are being made in response to the pandemic and which of these changes are going to be permanent. Like, this is just going to be the way things are from now on. Will movies actually wind up in theaters, or will they go straight to whatever streaming device you've got in your home? Are people going to be able to work from home a lot more? Talk about changes that you think might become permanent in the beer game.
I don't know if delivery will necessarily become permanent, but I'll bet you we'll get more pressure on Lansing to approve shipping beer. So right now you can't do that. For example, other states that is allowed. You can do that with, wine, but you can't do that with beer. So I think if you could get that law changed, that would really help a lot of these breweries. It'd add another way that they could get their product out in the public. And I definitely think a lot of them will also keep a certain level of this carry-out business that people have started to get used to. But I think at the end of the day, the taproom experience is what everyone's missing. Yeah. And I think when tap rooms, tasting rooms can open up again, that's really where the bulk of these breweries make their money. People are itching to get back in there when it's safe again and allowed. And I think you'll see most of the business will shift back to that, no matter what changes they got used to now. I think at the end of the day, like Becky said, what do you miss most? It's interacting with people and hanging out in a bar, brewery, restaurant where you get to catch up with people. And that's really where a tasting room shine. And these other things are nice incremental things that I hope a lot of breweries, continue. But at the end of the day, people want to interact at the actual place that's making it.
Well, and also breweries are big.
All right, Steve.
Oh, hold on, Seth. I wanted to say breweries are also places where you have comedians, musicians, game night. You have a lot of other artists. They become venues for multidisciplinary stuff. So that will help so many people get back to work when those can reopen.
All right, guys, let's get into shout outs. Whoa, did that...
What just happened?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
That'll teach me to interrupt.
We're at the...
Do not interrupt Seth.
Right, we're at the mercy of... We're at the mercy of the internet connection. It is not like running a professional radio show or a TV show. It's even different than the podcast. It's a
totally.
lot more on the fly.
Mhm.
So look, before we get into our own shout outs, we've had a number of people stop by the podcast. Jennifer A. Thomas says, hi, Becky.
That's my childhood friend. Thanks, Jen. My biggest fan. I love you.
Brian Peterson Roast. He's from Bees in the D.
Hey, Brian. So good
Great to see all of you. I would like to do a shout out to our board and volunteers at Bees in the D for all their hard work and despite these challenging times, staying positive. Very cool. What else we got here? Dara Collins.
Hey.
So, hi, Dara.
I should give a shout out to Dara's organization, Food Rescue Detroit, which we've been doing some really cool stuff with them, and they're getting food from people that have access to people who need it. So go Food Rescue.
And Leah Cartwright says, welcome back. Yeah, so this is, and hopefully we will get better at it as time goes on. This is our first one. But the plan is right now, every Tuesday at 5 to come and do a live stream like this and just touch base and check in with different people, see what's going on. One thing that we like to do a lot on the podcast, of course, is our shout outs. Just something cool that somebody is doing. Becky, let's start with you.
Oh, okay. So gosh, I could fill hours of that, my long-windedness with this, but I tried to just pick one. So the Detroit Creativity Project, that was started years ago. It's an improv teaching organization started by some Hollywood actors that all have Detroit connections. So we had Mark Evan Jackson. We interviewed him for the podcast. He's Brooklyn Nine-Nine and The Good Place. And one of the shows I've watched recently, Dead to Me, he's in that second season. Great guy. So they were struggling with how do we get this program that we normally teach to Detroit school children in schools. We don't want them to miss out. I mean, these are life skills. It's not just about learning comedy, improv, but it's like can reduce anxiety, can help you problem solve, collaborate with other people. That's the power of improv, right? So they have put everything online so their students can still learn improv skills. And the cool thing is, so can we. And you guys, I looked up these videos, so they're on YouTube, or you can go straight to the website, Detroit Creativity Project, and look up the improv project. It's super fun, even if you're just like with the people in your household, or maybe your neighbors across the fence, or you can play with friends on your phone. All these little improv games and tricks and tips. So I just want to give them a shout out for kind of pivoting, doing something cool that's keeping kids learning and that we can all have fun with as well. So like I said, Detroit Creativity Project, they're also donating a bunch of funds to Gleaners for food. So I just love what they're doing.
Very cool. Yeah, Mark Evan Jackson. We interviewed him way back, and I'm a huge fan of The Good Place and a lot of the other shows that he's been on. I haven't seen Dead to Me. That's on my list. My girlfriend's she's gone through the first season, and season 2 just came out, right?
Yeah, I watched the whole thing. Yeah,
so it's one of my shows that I think I have to catch up on. But I'm a huge fan of him.
I'm on like the 4th episode of the second season.
Oh, isn't it good?
Is it?
Yeah.
So I'll check it out.
Maybe on a future live stream, we should do some of these improv games. Cause like there was one that was like an ABC game where you just like create a story and go through all the letters of the alphabet, and it's fun way to connect. Oh, there's Linda. So Linda Yellen is the owner of Feet on the Street Tours. Hey, Linda, thanks for tuning in. Who else? Oh, thank you, Julie.
Becky's
I
got a lot of
appreciate
fans.
you. I have lots of good friends. I love you. Thank you.
So, what about you, Steve? Who do you want to give a shout out to?
Well, I'll give a beer industry shout out. About, I don't know, a few weeks ago, I did a beer pickup on a Saturday, and I went to Griffin Claw Brewing Company in Birmingham, Michigan. And I have to say, they got a great process for how they're doing that. And you can get beer, you can get hard cider, you can get any of their food and their merchandise. You can even get spirits. I think a lot of people forget that they do spirits. And I got a couple 15 packs of beer when I did the pickup order, and I picked up a bottle of vodka for my wife. And when they did that, they threw in a couple limes and a couple bottles of ginger beer so we could make some Moscow mules. So they even threw in, and it was a nice little bonus. And you should check them out at griffinclawbrewingcompany.com. You can even order online with them. And they just bring it right out. When you pull in there, they got a little canopy when you pull in there. They're doing a great job. They're also making hand sanitizer, and they've been donating that and selling some of that to the public. And they really got a nice streamlined operation. I'd say they're the first brewery I saw that was really doing that well, and someone we should all support locally here.
That's a great reminder. And Steve, do you know anything about this other proposed law for, open drinks, like in the street kind of thing, like where you could be along the DeQuinter Cut and people could be selling alcohol like they have in New Orleans? I guess it's in process in Michigan.
I do not. I'm not aware of that.
I just started to hear some rumblings of that and saw like one article. So I don't know. It's brand new, but that would be an amazing law change too.
Steve, I think lobbyists should be a new source of revenue for you during this pandemic. I think that's something you should get into.
Yeah.
Maybe. I'd like to have something be a source of revenue, so I'll take.
Right. I was going to say, whatever ideas are out there, we're hustling.
I love Griffin Claw. I miss Griffin Claw. That's one of my favorite places to go. To just when you talk about tap rooms and great places to just go and have a beer, but it's one of those places that it's crowded, and they jam a lot of people into a place. So
and the community tables too. That's something we love so much about places that's not going to be able to happen for a while.
So cool. Well, let me close with my shout out. I want to give a shout out to this is a cool story that I saw in the Free Press. Two filmmakers who are from the Detroit area, Brett and Drew Pierce. They are the writers and directors of an indie horror film called The Wretched. And The Wretched has actually been the #1 movie at the box office since May 1st. Now, there's a little bit of a technicality here. That's because it's only been shown at a handful of drive-thrus that have actually been open. And so they've been able to make money. But however you get it done, it's pretty amazing. To date, the film has made about $362,000. For frame of reference, Bad Boys for Life is the biggest film of 2020 so far, and it's made $204 million. So clearly the pandemic is having an impact at the box office, and this is changing things. But still, the fact that some gems are going to come through and some things are going to shine under these circumstances, and I think this is one of them. These guys shot it all at am I pronouncing this right? Leelanau Peninsula.
Leelanau.
What do you call it? Leelanau. See, I'm not a native Michigan.
No, you're not.
I don't even.
It was filmed primarily in Northport, which is a place up north that I spent 4th of July last year. So I'm going to be excited to see it and see all the background shots.
Are you an extra in the film? Are you?
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe not that I know of, but that'd be cool.
You need to get a credit and see if you can get in the union, get yourself some health care.
Yeah, thought about it. Yeah. But the cool thing was too, their dad, so these brothers' dad did like special effects on Evil Dead.
Yes, the Bruce Campbell film, the 1981 Bruce Campbell film. Their father did special effects for as well. And I checked, I pulled it up on my Roku, and for $6 you can watch it. So I am a horror movie fan. I will be checking this out in the coming weeks. So you don't have to go to a drive-thru if you don't have one that's open to you right now. You can see this film. But congratulations to Brett and Drew Pierce for having the #1 film in the country. It's pretty amazing. So, well, look, guys, that's it. That's our very first live stream. Thank you, Steve, for joining us for this. Look, I know how tough things are right now, and especially in the tour business. Hang in there, and we wish you the best. And come back and let us know what's going on with all the beer companies and the breweries, and what's going on with yourself as well. But we really appreciate having you on.
Yeah. And I love how you're just supporting everyone else, because it's easy when you're hurting and, your business is suffering to kind of focus inward. But, you're out there and I see you and I appreciate everything you're doing. And huge shout out to the Beer King. And when your tours start, we're going to upgrade your internet. I'm going to tell you that right now. We made it. We made it through.
All right, thanks, Steve. And look, Becky, you and I, we're going to be doing this every Tuesday at 5:00 is the plan. Until things change, and we may wind up pulling the audio and putting this up in the podcast feed as well, so that we can resume the podcast.
That'd be a good plan.
We may work out some kinks before we do that.
Yeah.
But when we get
a learning process, but I think, hey, we made it. We made it through. So
let's say something.
For tuning in.
Let's say something we haven't said in a long time. Detroit's moving.
Keep up.
The D Brief.
Your guide to Detroit's arts and entertainment scene.